Have you ever really thought about who holds the ultimate power at the very top of India's government? Well, today we're diving deep into the roles of the two highest offices in the land, the president and the vice president. All right, let's jump right in. Now, I know what a lot of people think, that these roles are just ceremonial, right? Grand titles, but not a lot of actual influence. But is that really the whole story? As you're about to see, the Constitution gives both the president and the vice president some very specific and sometimes absolutely immense powers. Okay, so let's get the basics down. At the very top, you have the president, who is India's head of state, the first citizen of the nation. Then you have the vice president. Now, they're second in command, but their main day-to-day job is to be the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of parliament. And trust me, this is way more than just a secondary role. It's absolutely central to how our laws get made. So first up, let's talk about the president's executive power. Honestly, the best way to think about this role is like a constitutional CEO. Why? Because just like a CEO, pretty much every single major action a government takes is officially done in the president's name. And look, this isn't just some clever analogy we came up with. It's written right there in the Constitution. Article 53 says that the executive power of the entire nation belongs to the president. So every major government decision, every big order, it's all formally issued in their name, acting, of course, on the advice of the prime minister and the cabinet. So this executive power sounds pretty big, but what does it actually look like in the real world? Well, one of the clearest and most direct ways we see it is through the president's incredible power to appoint key figures all across the government. And the list of who they appoint, it's just staggering. The president appoints the prime minister, the entire council of ministers, the chief justice, and all the judges of the Supreme Court and high courts, every single state governor, and even top officials like the attorney general and all our ambassadors abroad. Just think about that. This one power puts the president right at the very heart of the country's administration, its judiciary, and its diplomatic corps. Okay, so we've established the president is the executive head. But what about the whole business of making laws? This is where things get really interesting, because this is where both the president and the vice president play these critical, interconnected roles right in the heart of our democracy, the parliament. This right here is the vice president's bread and butter. As the chairman of the Rajya Sabha, they are basically the chief operating officer of the upper house. They're the one who maintains order, decides who gets to speak, and makes sure the legislative debate flows according to the rules. You could say they're the referee of a very, very important game. And you can see on this slide exactly how they work together. A bill gets debated in Parliament, right? In the Rajya Sabha, it's the vice president presiding over all those discussions. But even after a bill gets passed by both houses, it's not over. It then has to go to the president's desk, and only with that final signature, the president's assent, does that bill actually become the law of the land. But what happens if Parliament isn't meeting and a new law is needed urgently? Well, the Constitution gives the president a really unique and powerful tool for this exact situation, the ordinance. Under Article 123, the president can issue an ordinance that has the exact same force as a law passed by Parliament. It's a crucial power that lets the government act decisively, even when the legislature is on break. All right, now we get to what are probably their most critical functions of all, acting as the guardians of the nation when things go wrong. This is where their roles really shine, ensuring stability and continuity when the country needs it the most. And this is where the president's power becomes truly immense. The Constitution gives them the authority to declare 3 different kinds of emergencies. There's a national emergency, like during a war, a state emergency, often called president's rule, if a state government can't function, and a financial emergency, if the country's economy is about to collapse. These are the ultimate constitutional safety valves, and the president is the only one who holds the key. So what if the crisis is at the very top? What if there's suddenly no president? If the president were to die, resign, or be removed from office, the government doesn't just grind to a halt. The Constitution has a seamless plan. The vice president immediately steps in as the acting president, taking on every single presidential power. This brilliant system guarantees there is never a power vacuum. So we've looked at their executive powers, their roles in making laws, and what they do in a crisis. Now, let's put it all side by side to get a really crystal clear picture of how these two vital jobs actually compare. And when you look at it this way, the contrast is pretty stark, isn't it? The president is the head of state, the supreme commander of the armed forces, and has the sole power to issue ordinances and declare emergencies. The vice president? They don't have any of these powers directly. Their one and only constitutional job is to preside over the Rajya Sabha. That is, of course, until that critical moment they might have to step up and become acting president. It's a very clear, very deliberate division of labor.
And that's really the key takeaway here. While their powers are completely different, they aren't in opposition to each other. They're like two pillars holding up the same building. They're designed to work together to protect our constitutional integrity, our democratic process, and, above all else, the continuity of the Indian state. So we have this incredible system built for balance and stability. But it does leave us with a really fascinating question to think about. These offices are meant to be above politics. But what happens if the people holding them find that their own constitutional conscience puts them at odds with the elected government? That's a scenario that would truly test the limits of their power, and it's something worth pondering.